So what is going on with Cardano? We've got the biggest potential airdrop in crypto history and talk of $2 ADA. Lots to dig into. Let's go. So we're going to start here then. Is Cardano's Midnight worth the hype? And I thought this was a really interesting article, and I am going to be doing a proper deep dive into this project to enlighten people a little bit more as to, what Midnight is truly all about. So on June 23rd, Midnight Foundation released its first tokenomics paper. Earlier in June, Charles Hoskinson, the co-founder of Ethereum, ETH, and the founder of Cardano ADA, pegged Midnight as the single biggest event in the history of Cardano, with a caveat if it is successful, right? And I want to talk about this in a bit more detail, right? Because one thing that has been missing from blockchain technology is a compliant privacy layer. It's so important. If you want to bring in mainstream adoption and you want all of the money on the blockchain, you've got to have a compliant privacy layer to crypto, right? And blockchain technology. This is so you can get banks on the blockchain, right? Where nobody can see how much money you've got in your bank. They can't see who you're paying and what money you've got and all that sort of stuff. And it's the same with healthcare. If you want to get all your medical history and data on chain, you need to be able to mask it so people can't see your health conditions and what medication you're on and all that sort of stuff. But you also need to be able to unmask it so pharmacists, doctors, surgeons, and so on, medical professionals, if I can get my words out, can see that information. So this is so important. It's such a crucial missing part of the blockchain mass adoption puzzle, right? And ultimately, Nick and myself, we've been looking at this for a very, very long time before Midnight was even announced. Matter of fact, Cardano's team invited us to Edinburgh the day that he announced it to the world, right? And we were there then. The Midnight Foundation invited us to New York before the tokenomics paper went out, and talked everyone that was there through what Midnight is, what it's about, and so on. So we've been along the journey from the very beginning with Midnight, and we've got an open channel direct into the team if you've got any questions. So do let me know in the comments below. But for me, this is such a important missing part of what is required to bring in mass adoption. So is it just hype, or is it worth the hype? And I think it's definitely worth the hype. Again, I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that Midnight is going to be successful. We've gone into other projects that we thought would be that privacy layer, and they just failed. They fell flat on their face. Hopefully Midnight isn't going to do the same. I don't think it is. They've got an astonishing team, great backers, and you've got the likes of Charles Hoskinson blowing the trumpet and talking about it being a $10 trillion market cap for Midnight. So you've got a lot of adoption for Cardano as well. So all of the Night tokens are on the Cardano ecosystem, but 8 ecosystems in total are participating in this airdrop. You want to find out more, check out Cheeky Crypto Education, or the educational channel. And we've got tutorials on how to actually claim your Midnight. So definitely worth checking that out. But Cardano's Midnight begins night airdrop across 8 chains in privacy-powered rollout, right? So again, just really, really cool. So if you have or had at least $100 of native tokens on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, BNB Chain, Cardano, Avalanche, or XRP, or even Brave, you will be able and be eligible for the airdrop, right? The Glacier airdrop. So definitely worth checking that out. And like I say, check out the Cheeky Crypto Educational channel for tutorials on how to take part in that. All the official links are there, because you do have to link wallets, so make sure that you are using the official links, and we have those in the educational channels video descriptions for the Midnight airdrop. So go check that out. We got Cardano price structure mirrors previous cycle as key technical levels hold. So there's a lot of people talking about new all-time highs. They're talking about $5.80 to $6, mirroring the cycle. If the cycle plays out, that is the price targets that they're looking for, right? Price stability above 80 cent to 82 cent seen as critical for sustaining upward momentum. The RSI and the MACD readings indicate a building of bullish strength without overbought signals, which is really positive. So, basically we're looking at a very, very similar, move to what we saw in 2021. Now, I've come on record several times and said, look, I'm expecting a Fed pivot this summer. I've talked about this for probably 12 to 24 months, right? And, September is probably the month that it's going to happen. So next month, Fed pivot, we expect a crash, right? A bit like what we saw with COVID, right? So we go back to what happened in 2021. There was a big crash and then an almighty rally. We're kind of expecting something very similar this time round. Sometimes, the market cycles, they don't necessarily repeat, but they do rhyme. And, again, this is not this is for educational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor. Take all these price predictions as just examples, right? Then nothing's guaranteed in crypto, and you do risk losing all of your money if you invest. So I'm not encouraging anybody to get involved. So just so we're clear, I just really want to cover my thoughts, my opinions, and share what's going on in the blockchain space. We're pretty well connected, and I hope that it's helpful in some way. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. But look. We got Cardano price prediction. ADA holds breakout structure as bull's eye $2 in 2025. So again, just talking about the recovery aspect of things, talking about the move to the upside that is starting to look more and more inevitable, but not guaranteed, right? So it's going to be really, really interesting. Will we see $2 in 2025? Just like I've said about the spot ETFs before Bitcoins was even live, I expect it's inevitable that we would have altcoin ones. I said it would be inevitable there would be an Ethereum one. I do think Cardano ADA seeing $2, in my opinion, and it is just my opinion, is inevitable. It will happen at some point, maybe not, in the immediate future, but there's just so much on the roadmap, right? You've got the bridge to Bitcoin and, access to Bitcoin liquidity for DeFi on Cardano. You've got the Midnight Airdrop where we're going to see loads of people from different blockchains move into the Cardano ecosystem, probably for the first time. So look, you got a scaling solution. The list goes on and on. There's just so much to be bullish about when it comes to Cardano. Doesn't mean that it's all going to happen, but my opinion is very, very strong in my conviction on what I'm seeing in the market. And I've been in the market a long time, but that doesn't guarantee anything. Moving on, we've got Cardano stablecoin Djed goes private and open source. So I don't want to cover this in too much detail. I just wanted to let people know. I'm going to drop this in our free Discord link in the description of the video for people to get up to speed with. And then we've got Cardano ADA breakout incoming price chart hints at 126% rally. I mean, we could see some very big moves. That's where they're talking about that $2 price point. 126% rally would be very, very juicy if it was to materialize. And then we've got Cardano ADA could explode by 75%, but only under these conditions, according to this analyst. Again, talking about $1.30, $1.60. The one thing that strikes me is there's a lot of alignment to where we're going when it comes to these price predictions. Again, doesn't mean anything, doesn't guarantee anything, but when you tend to see this alignment with different analysts, you do tend to see some price action. It's going to be really interesting. Obviously, take everything that I say with a pinch of salt. If you do invest in cryptocurrency, you do so at your own risk. I take no liability in that. I'm just here to educate people on what's happening in the blockchain space. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.